Good morning, people. Uh, so this is an unusual video. Uh, Yesterday on a different platform, I uh, I watched a video and read an article associated with a story dealing with the tariffs and dealing with Amazon. Specifically, they were talking about Jeff Bezos capitulating to President Trump uh, and deciding not to post the tariffs that were attached to or associated with any particular order on the Amazon platform. And, people were calling Jeff Bezos a sellout and, a bunch of other things you can imagine. But anyway, so I went to the comment section, and the comments on this particular platform are usually um, fairly intelligent comments. There are occasional trolls, and depending on the subject matter, you will occasionally see some comments that are clearly AI generated, uh, advocating for just strongly advocating for one particular viewpoint or another. But generally speaking, most of the comments are from real people, and they're usually fairly respectful and again reasonably intelligent. So anyway, I posted a comment of my own, and then I read through other comments and I replied to about three other people and went on about my day, just forgot about it. Well, about an hour later, I checked my email, and my email was just saturated with notifications from this platform that I had been that my post had been responded to, and I mean there were a couple of dozens notifications, and that's never happened before. I might sometimes see one or two people respond to me uh, or give some type of feedback on a comment, but something had happened. So I was curious to see what the comments look like. So I went back to the site and read the comments, and my mind was blown. I was really just blown away by the comments. Um, they were generally respectful, so it wasn't like people were attacking me or throwing bricks at me or anything. What amazed me was that on this particular platform, where again I feel like that the people are generally pretty intelligent. Um, they clearly, as a group, had very little idea of how things worked, and I'm going to give you some context in there. So I, in my comment, uh, I was not taking up for Jeff Bezos, who on many levels I admire, and like many other people, I have issues with him as well. I don't like some of the things that he's done, but that's life. I mean, I can say that about almost anyone I know in life. Uh, I don't I don't reserve any particular anger or hostility for him, but I admire Amazon as a business. I admire the other projects that he's involved in, and I think people just frequently overlook, what an amazing business that Amazon is. But anyway, in my initial comment, I had said that I did not see how uh, people could expect Amazon to put a separate line item for a tariff on everything they sell, simply by virtue of the fact that most of the items sold on Amazon, about 60% of everything sold on Amazon, is sold by people like me. And I don't share my pricing with Amazon. Uh, when I have a shipment sent to one of their warehouses, they don't know what I paid for that shipment. They don't know, in many cases, where that shipment came from. So, since tariffs are based on the imported value, the declared value of an item that you're bringing into the country, um, the tariff paid is between me and customs. It has nothing to do with Amazon. So I don't see how they could, how the general public and the people posting this forum could expect Amazon to list a line item for the amount of tariffs that any particular order contained. that's just not reasonable. So then a lot of the comments I got were like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you sell on Amazon? And to this day, that amazes me because I've been selling on Amazon for 28 years. I had business cards that say, my name and import, export, Amazon, eBay, Shopify. And when I give those business cards out to someone who is not at a trade show, because I meet people all the time who want to know more about selling on Amazon. They've never heard of such a thing. Or maybe they've seen some videos on YouTube about it, and they finally find someone who does, Amazon sales, and they want to know more. So I give them my card, and they just don't get it that there are independent people like myself who sell on Amazon. And I've made some videos talking about just the history of business in general in the U.S. And for those of you who remember Kmart, Kmart's a really good example because Kmart owned a building, and there were some things in a Kmart that they imported themselves on behalf of their company, but the individual departments within a Kmart were frequently owned by outside operators. The shoe department in a Kmart was owned by a major company that sold through Kmart stores. The pet department that they used to have in Amazon in Kmart was owned by a large scale, pet supply company, and they sold through Kmart. And you can go right on down the line. There were numerous departments that were, not part of Kmart at all. They didn't. The employees that staffed those departments worked for an outside agency, and they weren't part of Kmart. Kmart supplied the building, and they supplied a sign on the front of the building saying Kmart. But other than that, a lot of the merchandise within the confines of a Kmart store were sold by outside contractors. To some degree, but a little bit lesser degree, but to some degree, you have the same thing going on with, say, a Lowe's Home Improvement. When you go into a Lowe's Home Improvement, you'll see people frequently stocking shelves and setting up displays and whatnot that work for outside companies that represent. Good example this time of year are backyard grills, barbecue grills. There are companies that come in and they assemble those grills, and they work on behalf of a grill importer or a grill distributor. And even though they're working within the store of a Lowe's Home Improvement, they do not work for Lowe's Home Improvement. So I don't know how people have missed this. I don't know how the general public has missed this business model. It's been around for It's been around longer than I've been around, but it's been around for a long, long time. Most retail stores utilize a business model like this to one degree or another, and with some slight different variations. Almost every grocery store actually sells products from companies where they don't actually buy that product. That product is sold on someone's behalf. It's almost as if the product on the shelf is on consignment. And when the product sells, the computers track it, and they remit to the supplier what that supplier is owed for the product that was on the shelf. And to take it one step further, most grocery stores also are paid by the products to merchandise their products in a certain way in a certain location, and it's based on the level of the shelf. Products that are at eye level or slightly above it or slightly below it pay more for that shelf space. Products that are on the lower level pay less for that shelf space. Products that have 3 or 4 rows going front to back, they pay X number of dollars. And products that have just 1 row, they pay a proportionally smaller fee to have their products displayed in a grocery store. And that's been a grocery business model. And again, different grocery store chains will use it in a different, slightly different ways. But generally speaking, that's been a business model in grocery stores since before I was born. It's been around for a long time, and shows no sign of changing. So Anyway, back to the original point in my comment. I pointed out in a comment that Jeff Bezos slash Amazon would have no way of knowing what to put, what note to put beside an item I was selling because they had no idea what I had paid for that item. And people just, they didn't understand that. I mean, that's a very simple statement, but they didn't understand that. So I made another comment and I said, okay, I said, let me give the people here who are really getting fired up about this, let me give you an example. I said, so I see an item I like, uh, let's just say it's on Alibaba. I see an item I like on Alibaba, and I decide that the next time I'm in China, I'm going to go and visit that manufacturer. Well, I can get a better price in China 99.9% of the time than Alibaba. Well, than I can get via Alibaba. Uh, I've had products that I've sold for years and sold profitably. And when I met the manufacturer at Canton Fair, almost immediately they've offered me significant discount over what I was currently paying. Even though I thought I had a good price to start with and it was a price that let me operate profitably, uh, typically I'm seeing discounts, and this has happened multiple times, but typically I'm seeing discounts in the 25 to 30% range over what I thought were already, um, you know, good prices and prices that I could purchase at and sell and make a profit. Um, so getting an additional 25 or 30% discount is just gravy. It's great. So I pointed out in my post, I said, so I take this step and I go to China and I get this additional 30% discount. And also I'm getting a discount because of the volume I'm buying in versus someone who may just be starting out on Amazon and maybe they're buying 250 pieces at a time and they're doing it strictly through Alibaba, and so they're getting product priced at $13.50 each per piece, just for lack of a better description. So they're paying $13.50 because I'm buying 2,000 pieces at a time. I'm getting something in the $9.50 range, so I'm already paying significantly less and saving a lot more money than they're saving. But then I go the extra mile, or in this case, the extra 12,000 miles roughly, and I fly to Canton Fair. I go to China for Canton Fair, and I meet that manufacturer. And all of a sudden now I'm buying that product at $6.90 each. I don't want Amazon. Well, first of all, I'm not going to share my price with Amazon. My pricing uh, can be used to somewhat uh, reverse engineer my purchasing process, my acquisition process, and that's the information I don't really want to share with other Amazon sellers, and it's not something I want to share with the general public. It's really none of their concern. So now we have two people, myself and this other imaginary seller, and if Amazon were to list a tariff, if we did in fact share pricing information with Amazon, so they're going to show 145% of $13 and something, and I'm going to show 145% of $6.90. That doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And there's no process for this. There's no system to collect that information, nor should there be. Okay, it's what I pay for a product that I'm selling to the public is no one's business but mine and the manufacturers. The public doesn't need to know what I pay for a product, and I'm not going to share that information with them, generally speaking. But my response in this case led to even more feedback and more responses, and people were getting pretty irritated and pretty hot. Um, they're saying, "Oh, well, so I'm price gouging." Well, one, I don't really know what the average person thinks of as price gouging. I believe price gouging is when you are selling $200 chainsaws for $1,000 the day after a hurricane hits. I'm from North Carolina. I've lived through dozens of hurricanes, and I've seen this happen over and over. Or wintertime when large areas have power outages, and all of a sudden the kerosene heater at the hardware store that was $129 a week ago is now $429. That's price gouging. That is raising prices, uh, and that's overtly taking advantage of people and taking advantage of a crisis to get additional money, and that's wrong. And it's usually pretty easily identifiable. But giving you another example, though, one of the Kardashians, I don't know which one, I don't follow the Kardashians, but one of the Kardashians had uh, an item that she was selling for about $175. And it was a makeup brush item, or a makeup brush kit. And I found that kit and that manufacturer, and that kit, if I bought 1,000 pieces, it was less than $3. And she's marking it up to, well over $100, almost $200, and selling it based on her name and the attachment that people have to her. Good for her. People that saw this item advertised had a choice of to buying it or not buying it. Nobody twisted their arm. My average markup on the consumer goods that I sell, which are fairly boring items, I'm looking at a margin in the, 25 to 35% range. If I can get a little bit more, that's great. And if you're looking at something like a supplement, those margins are typically anywhere from 50 to 80%, maybe even a little bit higher than that. There's a lot of markup in supplements. Does that mean that every item that's sold on Amazon or anywhere else should be sold for exactly the same markup? Should everything be 20% or 30% or 40%? Uh, no, no. When you look at, I'm just trying to give you different examples here, but this just blew my mind that people don't understand this. That this isn't just in, we're a capitalist society. We pride ourselves on being capitalist, but it seems like the vast majority of people don't know anything about capitalism. So, when you look at cars, uh, you've got a Corvette, you've got a Ferrari. These days, the Corvette will match or in many cases exceed the Ferrari's performance, depending on the model of Ferrari and depending on the model of Corvette. But I mean, we're in the same ballpark there. But that Corvette is probably going to be at least half the price of the Ferrari. I mean, it can be 150, 200, maybe $300,000 less expensive than the Ferrari, and they both seat the same number of people. They'll go just as fast, stop just as quickly. They'll perform in a similar fashion on the track or on the road. Uh, so what justifies that additional expense for the Ferrari? It's certainly not material cost, believe me. But it's the prestige, it's the markup, it's the idea that you're driving an iconic piece of automotive art, and people are willing to pay for that. So if you can come up with a product for $1 that you can sell for $100, and do so, you capture the imagination, and you capture the desires of your intended market by virtue of your marketing, by virtue of, let's assume it's a good product, and you can sell it for that much money. Great, that's wonderful. Uh, but people didn't seem to get that, and as the evening wore on, I mean, this turned into several hundred responses. I think I made a total of about 6 responses, and I haven't even checked this morning. I am sure that I have dozens more people that have responded or commented on the things I was saying. But there seemed to be there were threads that ran through this that I found just really amazing. there seemed to be this general belief that somehow there were price controls on things in the U.S. Uh, or price controls globally. I don't know, but they certainly believed that there were price controls, and there aren't. Um, only under very very rare circumstances are any kind of price controls ever instituted in the U.S. We have a free market economy, uh, totally capitalist, and basically a producer, supplier, seller is allowed to charge the end user whatever they want to charge, uh, unless it falls in that category of what we were talking about earlier, which would be price gouging. Uh, basically the price gouging is in the eye of the beholder. Uh, if you feel like you're getting taken advantage of, you have other options to choose from. It's just like watching television shows. If you don't like what you're watching, turn the channel. But this belief that ran through, again, dozens and potentially hundreds of responses seemed to indicate that people thought that we had price controls. And you know it, we we really got in the weeds a little bit, because this is something I worry about when I'm teaching an Amazon course. I worry about the things that I know, or that I just have as part of my thought process, that are so insignificant to me, I don't think about conveying them to my students, just because I assume everyone knows this. So when I'm confronted with just this wall of I mean, I don't want to. I'm not saying stupidity, because these people aren't stupid, but this wall of ignorance, or this wall of misunderstanding, I'm just shocked by it, especially when we're talking about very, very basic things that are, um, that underpin our society and the way that we live. You would expect people that are in a capitalist society that wave the flag of capitalism themselves and whatnot, that you would think that they would have a basic understanding of how capitalism works. And these remarks made it clear that that's just not the case. So then I made a comment talking about monopolies, and how one of the reasons that in the United States we are seeing price increases, you know, rapid price increases, are largely due to uh, the erosion of controls over monopolies during my lifetime. I drive down, a busy street where I live, and I see 20 fast food chains or 20 restaurant chains, some fast food, some quick serve, and they're owned by about three private equity companies. So, you have price fixing taking place in terms of what wages are. If you're working at Chili's and you want to, you don't like it, you want to move and you want to go to Applebee's, well, they're not owned by the same people, but trust me, the money behind them is coming from people that have the same mindset. So Applebee's is not going to offer you more pay than Chili's did. And if you want to leave Applebee's and go to Wendy's, well, guess what? Wendy's is not going to offer you more pay than Applebee's did. So there's collusion. There is price fixing in every sense of the word. But they don't seem to worry about that. They don't seem to. That doesn't get them fired up, and it really should. When we have issues with egg prices, currently our egg prices in this country are being impacted pretty severely by bird flu. But 2 years ago, when the prices spiked unbelievably almost overnight, that wasn't the case. Um, there was bird flu at the time, but in the U.S., the bird flu was impacting the producers who make chickens for meat, not producers who make chickens to lay eggs. So there was no reduction in supply of our egg supply 2 years ago, but yet egg prices went up, by multiples, and stayed elevated for about 6 months. Those people gouged. That was true price gouging. There was no supply issue, no demand issue. Supply had not decreased, demand had not increased. There was no reason for those prices to jump the way they jumped. And if you looked at historical egg pricing and looked at the earnings of the two largest egg producers in the country, you saw that those earnings had been very stable for years and years and years. And my impression of this at the time was that two guys, the CEO of the two largest egg producers in the country, probably had lunch together one day and said, "Hey, there's this front page news about about bird flu. Let's jack our prices up and see if we can get away with it." And they did. The largest egg producer in the country that year increased their profits about 700% over where they had been the previous year, and over the level that they had pretty much maintained, in recent history. And the second largest egg producer in the country, their profits went up 635% over where they had been the previous year. That is price gouging at its finest right there. That's price gouging. But people step in and think, oh, well, a president can fix that. Drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill more oil. The president, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Trump or Biden or Joe from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I don't care who it is. The president has little to no control. I mean, we're talking about minuscule amounts of control over oil companies drilling for oil. Oil companies are there to make money. It costs them X number of dollars to get oil out of the ground. And if the supply goes too high and oil prices drop, they will shut wells off the way they turn off a light when they walk out of the room. And they'll wait until oil prices go back up, and that well then can produce again at a profit. And they will decide alone when to turn a well on and off, when to start and stop production. That is based on their cost of production, and that is based on them. Again, they want to maximize their earnings. They have shareholders that expect them and legally require them to maximize earnings every single quarter. That's the system we have in the U.S., and that's the system we have around the world. and everyone should know this. Certainly if you're an American and you're a flag-waving American and talking about how we're a capitalist society and that, by golly, it's going to stay that way, you owe it to yourself, so you don't look like an idiot, to know these things. It's just like when you see somebody at the gas pump and they're driving a Humvee that gets 6 miles per gallon and they're complaining about gas prices. No, you don't have the right to complain about gas prices if you're driving one of the least fuel-efficient vehicles on the road, and that's your soccer, your everyday driver that you take your kids to soccer practice in. No, you have forfeited your right to complain about gas prices. Now, if you're driving a Prius and you're still having trouble affording gas, well, okay, you've got a point. But again, when you're sucking down getting 6 miles to the gallon, no, you can't complain about gas prices. So, when you're out here and you're talking about, somebody being a communist or being a socialist, and the comment that was made to me yesterday was, I was not in favor of transparency. Well, I'm generally speaking very much in favor of transparency, but there are certain things that are proprietary information in a business sense. And what I pay for a product and what I sell it for, that's one of those things. If you don't like a product, don't buy it. If you think it's overpriced compared to its competition, don't buy it. That's one of the things we teach in the course, my Amazon course. And that's one of the things that people should understand about their own thought process. When you go to a Walmart and you pick up a blanket and it's $29 and there's another blanket right beside it that's $39, well, you look at it and you evaluate those two blankets and say, is this other blanket, is it worth $10 more than the first one? And if you think it is, then you buy it. And if you think it's not, then you buy the first blanket. Or you don't buy any blanket at all and you go on about your business. You do something different. But, I'm going to close it up here because I could talk about this all day, because it really I found it to be stunning that reasonably intelligent people seem to have no idea how our society works in a commercial sense. I don't see how you can be more than 10 years of age and not have just an intuitive understanding because of the exposure you've had to the system your entire life. I don't get it, but that's the world we live in, and this lack of understanding about how the world around us works, uh, probably accounts for a lot of things in terms of how people vote and what jobs they take and why they don't do things to make their lives better, why they stay in a job they hate when they could do something they might really like. Uh, and it's just making me think, and I thought I'd put this out there and let you all think about it. Uh, I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of someone that teaches people how to sell on Amazon and how to make their lives different and how to have a life-changing impact on their lives. But I always worry that you know information I'm trying to convey, no matter how much I simplify it, is still going to be over the heads of some or even the majority of the people that I might engage with. Uh, my job is to train people and to help empower them to change their lives and provide more for themselves and more for their families. And I don't want to come in at a level where I'm over their head, but on the other hand, I don't want to come in at a level that is so simplistic that it's almost condescending and insulting to them. But I'm not sure after yesterday's experience. I'm not sure how low that level is. Um, I'm not sure really where to start. Over the years that I've been, um, teaching people in e-commerce and in Amazon in particular, I've transitioned from in-person seminars, usually held around the country in hotels for 3 days, where I can see the people. I can gauge whether they are getting it or they're not getting it, and I can adjust my presentation accordingly. But now that we're in the digital age, and I'm trying to get this information out there to as many people as I can, again, to help them transform their lives, I feel like there's something beneficial to all of us. If you have knowledge, you need to share that knowledge, and I'm trying to do that. But I'll tell you, the digital medium here, this two-dimensional world that we live in, uh, is difficult sometimes because you can see me and I can't see you. I don't know if you're getting it or not. And when I see comments like I saw yesterday, it makes me think that a lot of people are coming into uh, into this discussion, into this space where we're talking about commerce in general, e-commerce in particular, and Amazon specifically, with just really very little knowledge uh, about how the world works. But anyway, that's it for this morning. Uh, I hope you watch this. I hope you're thinking about it. I hope if nothing else, I've influenced you to to dig a little deeper before you solidify thoughts in your head, or before you engage on subjects where your level of knowledge is a little bit shaky. If the subject is important enough to you to put your voice out there, uh, I hope that you would take the effort, or make the effort to inform yourself to the greatest degree possible. Uh, but those are my thoughts for this morning. For what it's worth, didn't cost you anything, so hopefully you're not mad at me. And look, my channel is about Amazon FBA. Did a little bit with Shopify, a little bit with eBay. Uh, so if you've watched this and you found anything I've said here useful or intriguing, go ahead and hit subscribe. Uh, I rant on a regular basis, and some people find it amusing, but I'd appreciate your subscription. And if you have questions, leave it in the comment section down below. And as you see, I frequently read comments, and you may very well get a response. But that is all. Have a good day.